All right, welcome everybody to learning how to make a mask. This mask. Let me take it off so you can hear me better, but here is the mask. Let me model it for you. This is a fitted mask. There's a measurement between your nose and your chin. It's a fitted mask. Ponytail up here helps keep the top strap where it should be. Let me take it off and I'll show you how we make this mask. All right. Okay. Whew. This is an awesome mask. It has 2 layers of woven cotton and a layer of, in this case I use t-shirt material because this was kind of a prototype. Let me show you what you're going to get in your kit should you be purchasing the kit from me. You are going to get a fat quarter of a print. This is what's going to be on the outside of your mask that everybody's going to see. So and I am going to give you the option on my website to order it, or if you come, whatever you call me, you know, what color, what type of print, you know, do you want animals, do you want, I've got some camouflage, you know, that sort of thing. So you're going to have one color, you're going to have one plain fat quarter as well. And then you're going to also have a 15 by 18 inch piece of cotton jersey knit. Now this is 96% cotton, 4% spandex. This piece I would iron with your iron setting at about a 3 for the little bits that you need to iron this. Everything else iron it at a cotton setting, and once you get the mask all put together, especially if you're ironing on the woven side of it, just go ahead and iron on the cotton setting. What else will be in your kit? Will be 2 pipe cleaners. You will have a pattern. Now this is, don't mind the scribbles, this is a draft pattern. I'm actually, while we're filming this, taking still pictures to put in the pattern. So this is the instructions, and you will also have a template for 3 sizes of mask. This is the large, the medium, or the small. Sizing of your mask. The small is about 4 1/4 inches, tip of your nose to tip of your chin. The medium is 5 inches, and the large is 5 3/4. I wear a small. Originally I made a large for my husband, and it actually was too big. It rode up so high that it pushed his glasses up, and then it was clear down here in the chin instead of, you know, to the throat instead of just under the chin. So he actually wears a medium now. So that makes me think there's probably not going to be very many people that need a large. What else is going to be in your kit? That's all that's going to be in your kit. What else you'll need is your rotary cutter or scissors. If you're going to use rotary cutter, you'll need, for a couple places, there's a couple straight edges you actually can use your rulers on. You will need some kind of pen. This is a friction pen to trace your template onto your pattern. You will also need, now you can just straight use this piece of paper and trace around it, but paper crinkles and folds. So in the directions of the pattern, I suggest that you trace your pattern either onto template plastic, which is not included in your kit, or what I did on these ones, this is just cardstock. And I kind of cheated. This cardstock will go through my printer. Since I have the patterns on my computer, I just printed them onto the cardstock. If you're downloading this pattern from, because I will put this up as a free download on my website. If you're downloading this pattern, make sure you print out at least the template pages at actual size. These are going to be PDFs, and depending on printer settings, whatever on your computer, oftentimes I have found, like my computer, PDFs want to print out at 97% instead of 100%. So make sure you check actual size if you're downloading this. If you're copying it, if you're going to run it through a copier onto cardstock, again, make sure it actually goes actual size. My printer, I had about 2 printers back, I didn't realize that it was a copy function. I put the piece of paper in, I tell it to copy, and what came out the other side was not exactly the same size as what went in. So just be aware of that as you're printing, copying, whatever. Obviously, with a rotary cutter, you'll want a cutting mat. You need a pressing mat and an iron. One thing you will find handy for ironing curved seams, if you're a quilter, I know you don't do very many curved seams, is a pressing ham or a tailor's ham. I don't happen to own one. I own a roll of paper towels though. This works just fine. All right. I believe that is all that we need to get started. So we will go to the cutting mat and we will cut our pieces. Let's get started cutting your mask out. Here's a brief overview of what is going to be in your kit. You're going to have a 15 by 18 inch piece of jersey knit. You're going to have your pattern. I have already cut my template off the pattern, and we'll go over that. You're going to have 2 pipe cleaners. You're going to have a fat quarter, which is 18 by 22 or thereabouts, of a print. This is going to be on the outside what people are going to see. You're going to have also a fat quarter of a plain fabric, again approximately 18 by 22. Let's get started. Let's show you how we cut this. We're going to start first off by folding everything right sides together, and you'll see why when we get to sewing, why we're going to fold it right sides together along the 18-inch direction of every piece. So it's going to end up at 9 inches by 15 in the case of the knit, or 9 inches by 22 in the case of the fat quarters, the woven fabrics. Okay, so I've got the knit folded. I'm going to set it aside for just a moment. I'm going to fold the print fabric again right sides together. Okay, right sides are together there. I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to fold the plain, which it doesn't matter, it doesn't have a right or wrong, just fold it along the 9-inch direction. Now I'm going to take this plain, and I am going to get this in camera view here, and I'm going to stack the plain and the woven on top of each other. The folds are together. Line everything up on the edges. Okay, and I'm going to, just to make sure we stay in camera view, I'm going to roll this edge over here. We're first going to cut our straps. Our straps, I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm leaving my selvage on. I know as quilters, we cut our selvages off. I'm leaving them on. This is to make a tie strap for a mask. It's no big deal. Leave the selvage on. That gives you more usable fabric. So I'm going to 1.5 inch mark is my second red line on this ruler. And I am going to make, through all layers here, I am going to cut 4 strips 1.5 inches wide. Okay. And then, so there's 1. Good. There's 2. There's 3. And there's 4. Make 4 cuts. You actually end up, when you unfold this, you end up with 4 printed straps, 18 inches by 1.5, and 4 white straps, 18 inches by 1.5. They can all be used. On your mask, one thing I would recommend is if you're making 2 different sizes of mask, color code your straps. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to be making medium and a small. The medium is going to have a print fabric for the straps. The small is going to have the white fabric for the straps. And that's just a way so you know which size is which by looking at it. Do it however you want. All right, so now I'm going to put my straps aside. I'm going to open this back out. Actually, I am going to make out of this one, I'm going to make 2 smalls. I have 2 mediums in progress on another off to the side. So this particular kit is going to be 2 smalls, and I'm going to intermix. So I'm going to lay, whoops. Next I'm going to pull the knit fabric in. I'm going to lay this on top of here. Now, if your print fabric doesn't matter which way is up, this is fine. If your print fabric, like this one, is very directional, there's an up and there's a down. What I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to put the 2 fabrics there aside, and I am going to cut this one along this edge. Just shave an edge off. Just shave an edge. And then I'm going to take the layer that is, bring these back over here, put this back on here. Now, which layer is upside down? That layer is fine. This top layer, I'm going to turn it 180 degrees. Now, all my cats, if I open it up this way, are all going the same direction, which, you know, is the way I want it, because I don't want one half my face, the cats standing on upright, and one half them standing on their heads. If your fabric is not directional, if it doesn't matter what way's up, you don't need to do that step of turning one half. It'll be just fine the way it is. All right, now, back to my template. I'm going to take, this is my small template. I have printed this onto cardstock. I'm just going to lay it on here. And I am going to trace around it. Be careful that nothing shifts on you in the tracing or in the cutting process. If things shift, you're going to have a problem of things being not shaped right. The knit, and if any of these fabrics are wrinkled, you'll want to iron them first. If you're using my kit fabric is a 96% cotton, 4% spandex. I would not iron it on a hot cotton setting, the knit fabric, until you have it protected by some wovens. So I would iron it on my iron says, a setting of 3. The cotton fabric, of course, you can iron on a cotton setting. Now, I was hopeful that we could get 3 smalls out of one kit, and I think it looks like we can only get 2. And I'm putting this edge as the edge that's going to be along your ear, and I'm putting it straight of the grain. And I'm going to draw a second one. And you can see there's not enough room out here to do a third one. I was hopeful. Didn't happen. You can, of course, draw these, each layer of fabric individually, cut it individually, whatever. I think this is probably a faster way of cutting. After all, we're not necessarily after, award-winning quality. We're after, let's get a mask made so we can wear it. Okay, so now they are traced. All right, rotary cutter. You can use a rotary cutter on curves, but you're not going to use a ruler. You're going to freehand it, or you can use scissors. This many layers I actually would recommend the rotary cutter, but we're not going to roll the rotary cutter. Rolling the rotary cutter is going to push this top layer. We don't want that to happen. All we're going to do is we're going to get on the line and we're going to push down. Cut all the way through, pick it up, and go to the next spot on the line. All the way around on this. If you're using a t-shirt, if you just downloaded the pattern and you're using a t-shirt for your knit layer, make sure you do not put your template over any sort of screen printing or embroidery on that t-shirt. You can't breathe through screen printing very easily. And embroidery, I know you probably can't breathe through embroidery very easily either, especially machine embroidery. So make sure you've got clear fabric. All right, and now it's not pulling away, so it probably means I did not quite get everything cut around. There we go. Now I'm getting all the way through. You may have to do this a couple of take peeks. You are cutting through 6 layers of fabric, and like I say, you don't want to roll because you don't want that top layer to shift. So you're going to do this obviously for both templates that we have traced. All right. Carefully turn. Okay. And when you get to this point and you're cutting against, you have only left yourself a small gap like I did. I actually could have shifted this over and had a whole lot more, but I just kind of wanted to have a little extra left. Make sure you don't cut into the next mask over. All right, now hint, hint. This side and this side, they're both straight lines. I am going to use a ruler. Just lay it on those straight sides, and I am going to roll on the straight lines. The ruler is pushing down here. Make sure the ruler is over the area of your mask, and that'll help hold things still. Go. And as is this place where I already pre-trimmed your corners here for the pattern, that also is a straight line. And one last little piece left here. A little flat on the bottom. That should be free. Okay, there is one set free. Okay, so now let's make our tie straps. We're going to start by pressing them. You're going to have 4 1.5 inch by 18 inch of your print and 4 1.5 by 18 inch of your solid. I recommend you put the prints all on one mask, the solids all on the other. You could mix them up if you want to, but it'll help you tell your masks apart if you keep them together. As I said earlier when I was cutting, I'm going to put the prints on the medium-sized mask, I think it is, and the solids on the small-sized mask, so that'll help me tell the difference in them. So let's do what we're going to do. We're just going to make double fold tape and top stitch. So double fold tape, we're going to take our fabric, turn the right side down so that we're going to press. And yes, I am using the selvage, and no, I don't care that it's the selvage. These are tie straps. I don't care. I'm just going to fold this in half the long way, and I'm going to press or iron down the length to set that center crease. Super duper easy. These are short. It goes fast. All right. Next step is kind of sort of open it, but you can still see the crease. I'm going to fold the edge closest to me into that crease. Be careful you don't get your fingers in it. I'm just going to go right along, pressing this edge to the crease. My iron cord caught on something underneath, and here we go, pressing along. Okay, turn this around and do the same thing on this side, pressing this edge to that center crease. Okay, so now everything is pressed, and then I'm just going to fold everything in and do a final press just down the length of it, making sure everything is all tucked in. And this goes, as you can see, fairly fast because it's pretty easy. Yes, the selvage one's a little thicker and sometimes doesn't necessarily like to stay folded, but you know, we'll make it. Okay, and then you're going to do that on all the remaining straps. I won't do that on video because it's all the same thing. All right, so now we have cut out all of our pieces. Here are our pieces. We have them in nice, neat piles. Our pieces here. So we have all of the 6 layers of fabric for each mask, and then we have 4 printed strips and 4 white strips. The strips I have already pressed. So let's get started sewing. This is super easy. We're not turning any long skinny tubes, which I've seen some people do. We're not doing that. We've pressed these. We are now just going to top stitch down the length of these, keep folding all the raw edges in, and that's going to be it. Just set this underneath the foot here. Grab my ties, my ends. Just make sure everything all stays folded up as it feeds through the foot, and you're good to go. You don't have to be particularly close to either edge. Right down the middle works. So let's sew one strap.
You have to stop a couple of times to keep it.
Alright, one strap done, just feed the next strap in, and it's good to go. We don't need to film any more of this because it's all the same. Okay, the next thing we're going to do after we have the straps all top stitched is we are going to sew the center seam of our mask. Here's our pile of material that we have cut. This is the way it was when it was cut, all 6 layers here. The reason I told you to fold them right sides together, because we're going to sew them right sides together. We don't have to move a thing. We're just going to grab 2 off the pile and we're going to sew it. So we're going to start. If you will look at this little edge here, all of the corners I've already clipped. You're actually going to start at your little corner and you're going to come around and you're going to be doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. By the time you get down here, you're at a 1/4 inch. I have my 1/4 inch foot on my sewing machine because it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you will want to back stitch about 3 or 4 stitches at the beginning and end of each seam on the 2 wovens. On the knit fabric, if you do, you can do just a regular straight back stitch, and in which case you'll also want to do your back stitch 3 or 4 to begin with. I happen to have on my machine, I have a stretch straight stitch. It's 2 stitches forward, 1 back, 2 forward, 1 back, and so you don't need to back. You don't back stitch with that because it has a built-in back. If you don't have a straight stitch on your machine, or a straight stretch stitch, just a regular straight stitch works. So here we go. I started, I back stitched. Now we'll go forward at our 1/4 inch seam allowance. Quilters often don't sew around corners or around curves, so just sew slow. Don't push, just guide. You're just going to guide it around the corners. Don't push, don't pull, just guide. And you may need to go slower so you can guide better. I tend to slow sew, and I got to get my foot on the right spot on the pedal to sew at the speed I want to sew. There we go. And the same thing down here on the bottom. When you get to the bottom, that corner is clipped. Just aim for, you'll see on the pattern where the stitching line goes. So aim for that spot where it goes off. Back stitch 3 or 4 stitches. Okay, that is the top layer. You're going to do exactly the same thing with the inner plain and with the knit. Alright, so after you have all 3 pieces sewn on their center seam, set the 2 woven pieces aside for just a moment. Okay, take the knit piece and open it out a little bit. On this one edge, we're going to roll over just a small hem, roll it once, roll it twice, and then we're going to top stitch that down. Approximately a 3/8 inch. It folds about that amount nice and tidily, and we're just going to top stitch that down. So this is my stretched straight stitch. 2 stitches forward, 1 back. I am using a universal sewing needle that will sew both knits and wovens. Then we're going to go over to the pressing mat. Okay, now over here at the pressing mat, we are going to press our seam allowances to one side. I'm going to start with the knit fabric. I want to press the seam allowance away from this edge, and when we get to putting the nose piece, pipe cleaner in for the nose piece, you'll see why. And it's a curved seam. If you can't, curved seams are hard. This is where the pressing ham, tailor's ham, or the half-used roll of paper towels comes in quite handy. So I'm just going to lay that curved seam over that. And I'm going to press with my little iron. This little iron only has one setting, so that's another reason I'm doing it first before this little iron might heat all the way up. Again, this fabric that is in your kit has a small amount of spandex in it, so it's probably not meant to be ironed on full hot cotton setting. And just kind of press that over there the best we can. Again, this also does not have to be totally perfect. It has to be good enough, which is yes, I say good enough, which is, if you know me, that nothing's ever good enough. It's got to be perfect, but this doesn't have to be. Then I'm going to turn it back. I turn it right side out, and I'm going to press from this side to try to get a nice crisp, as crisp as we can. Knit doesn't tend to be super crisp. I did find that rolling it around the roll of paper towels on the longish, less curved, shorter, portion of it seemed to work. We're going to do this on all three pieces. Okay, there's the knit one. Now, the next portion, what piece we're going to press is the plain one, and we're going to press it. Let's lay these two pieces so that they are kind of the same direction, and we're going to press this seam the other direction, and you'll see why. So we're going to press this one. Another reason to only do 1/4 inch seams, not so much bulk when I'm pressing things one direction. I will say the original pattern that I found had you pressing seams open, and my thought was, much like the reason we don't press seams open on quilting, we don't press seam allowances open on quilting, but we press them to one side so that we don't have any holes for your batting to go through. Well, on our mask, I'd rather not have any holes for, have fewer holes for germs to go through too. So I'm pressing these to one side instead of open. And I'll turn this over and press on the outside as well. There's my roll. And then the outer layer, we lay it, the outer layer and the inner layer. I'm actually going to press this one the same direction I press the plain coat layer. And actually, it probably does not make a huge difference which direction I press this one. Probably doesn't make a huge difference which direction we press either of the wovens, but to reduce bulk, we kind of don't want all three seam allowances going the same direction on the finished product.
This little iron may actually be easier on this than when I was using the big iron. And you do notice, because back when I was cutting, I turned one half of the fabric 180 degrees, all the caps are all facing the same direction. There's no caps standing on their heads.
All right, so there's that. And then we need to pin. Okay. All right, now that all the center seams are pressed, our next step is we're going to start layering our layers together. We are going to start with the inner layer, the plain woven. Kind of cup it so it's cupped, the seam allowance, the wrong side is cupped to the outside. Then we're going to take our knit layer and we're going to cup it the same direction. So we're going to put the right side of the inner layer next to the wrong side of the knit layer. And we're going to match our seams up and pin. And yes, I pin everything. Match our seams up on. We don't at this point have to be quite so exact, but I'm going to make sure I want to be. Now, on our seams, at least center seams, that we don't have to be, but I'm going to be. Pinning. Okay. Now this side, the side that does not have the hem, we're going to match our corners exactly. And we're going to pin. And pin across your corner that way, at the 45 between the long parts. And I'm going to pin over here. The side that has the hem, well, we're going to not stretch the knit, but have it straight along the edge, match our edge up, and we should be inside that edge there, the corner there. We definitely should be inside that, and we're going to pin here. Now, when this is all done, this is actually going to be an open pocket where if you choose to put some additional filter media in, you can. I'm not giving you a template of what shape to make that. From what I have seen, it really doesn't make a difference. It looks like my fabric stretched as I hemmed it, and I don't care. It'll work its way out. It'll probably shrink back up. Okay, so this is all I'm going to pin on these two layers together at the moment. Now, I am going to take my straps, my tie straps. This is a size small. And I said I was going to put the white ones on the small. I'm just trimming one thread there where I had to start a new bobbin on the top stitching. White ones on the small mass to help tell them apart from the medium mass, which are going to have the printed straps. Where we're going to put these. We're going to take the strap. It's going to go in towards the center of the strap. This little triangular point here, that is about, you need it just inside of that. And I'm just going to pin this down. Pin each one. And it really doesn't matter what edge is up on the strap. Just going to pin this down. Now on this edge, we're not catching the knit when we pin it down. Okay, and do the same thing over here. This side, though, we are going to pin through. We're going to catch all the layers just inside that little triangular mark there. and pinning. And the last one. And so that's pinned in place. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to run just a little, very narrow amount of stitching just across the edge of the strap, just to hold it in place so we can pull the pins out. So let's head back over to the sewing machine. Alright, so we're just going to sew just a little narrow, only about 3 or 4 stitches, little narrow, just enough to hold the straps on so I can pull the pins out. That is all we are going to do. All the way around on all 4 straps. So not even the 1/4 of an inch, like a whole lot less than that. And as I go, it's just going to be, like I say, just about 3 or 4 stitches. Tails. Okay, there's one strap.
This is just basting stitches. I heard that click. Yes, I sew over my pins sometimes. I heard that one click. My pin bent luckily my needle did not. Alright. Turn this whole thing around.
Okay, and the next step is going to be back over putting the last layer on, and sewing it all around. So we'll see you back over at the cutting board mat, pressing mat. Alright, welcome back. Just so you know, it is the next day, and if you hear noise in the background, that's Roomba. Alright, so where we ended up last time was we had just sewn just our little straps on. We pulled the pins out of the straps. I've left all these corner pins in. Here's what we're doing next. I'm going to lay all of the straps, and that was Roomba bumping the camera, over in the middle towards this, which is a pocket here. And we're going to lay now the outer layer on here, right sides together. Now, I know I told you to press the outer and the inner, the seam the same direction. Don't do that. Press them opposite directions. I'm actually just going to flip this seam over. And I'm going to start matching my seam up here. And I'm just going to switch these pins over. And I do recommend at this point pinning quite well. That knit layer likes to be slippery. And we need to go through all 3 layers. I'm going to start with the centers and go to the corner. Now when we sew this, we're going to be sewing the outer. We want to make sure we catch the strap across here, but not on this seam here across here. So that's something to be watchful for, both in your pinning and in your sewing. So I'm going to carefully not catch the strap in that pin, and that kind of holds it away from that edge. Alright, and over here, to this corner. Now this corner, you'll note the knit fabric ends before we get to the corner, which is exactly how we want it to do. I am going to kind of fold that strap in just a little bit. But again, I don't want to catch it. So I'm not going to catch the, if I don't catch it in the pin, it'll, actually I'm going to go this way because I'm not turning this corner. I'm sewing straight across there. And that'll help keep that flat. You have to just, all right, you have to just go that way. Okay, now we're going to start pinning in the middle, and I do recommend pinning quite liberally because, like I said, that knit layer likes to slide on you. It's not the same texture. It doesn't stick super good. So I pin about roughly every inch. Now this pin I'll just transfer through here. All the layers all the way around. And if we figured out how to fast forward, we could possibly fast forward through this. Don't know if we've got that figured out on our video editor yet, how to do a fast forward. Okay, so I've got across the top pinned. Now come to this edge here again, pin, match the corner up, pin here without catching the strap. To help push it away so it doesn't get caught on the seam where it should not. Now on this end, also, the straps are just a smidge tricky. I mean, not too bad, but a little bit. I'm going to pin, now I've pinned over here, pushing the strap away from this edge so I don't catch it on that edge. But I also don't want the strap going off at a wonky angle when I do catch it here in this seam. So I am going to pin basically right beside this strap here. And that's going to mean that strap, when we sew this seam, it's going to go straight across and not be off at a wonky angle. And the same thing over here. And then a couple here in the space. All right, and down here, yes. So the reason why I'm flipping this seam the other direction is that kind of evens out the weight of things. The knit fabric is a bit heavier than the wovens, and so having its seam allowance go one way and the two wovens go the other way does kind of even out the bulk. Also, for the seams to kiss, like we'll want to say, I'm actually needing it to kiss against the knit seam, which is another reason why it needs to go up, you know, as it's pinned here, the opposite direction of the knit one. So here we go.
And pin there, and then on the short side 1 or 2, and do 2 just to keep things from slipping. And kind of that way, things like to slide on me. Alright, and get up to this corner. And match this corner here.
Again, we're going to kind of that way. And just transfer that pin to the whole thing. And probably one more here in the middle. Now when we sew this, we're going to sew 1/4 inch seam. Start here on the edge. We're going to get here to within 1/4 inch of the edge. We're not going to go clear off the edge. We're just going to lift the presser foot and turn and sew back around here. So let's go over to the sewing machine and stitch this. Alright, so like I said, we're going to sew around the 3 edges of this mask at a 1/4 inch seam. You will want to do your back stitch at the beginning and end of the seam. So here we go. Get it stuck under the machine properly. Sometimes his and also again remember, don't catch the straps in the top and bottom seam. They only need caught in the edge seams. And I'm going to do about 3 stitches forward, then a little back stitch.
Yes, there are curves to go around, shapes and all that. Just don't go off to the races as you sew. Also try not to stab yourself with the pins.
Coming up on the corner, and if you're using your 1/4 inch foot, it should have a mark when you get to a 1/4 inch of the edge that we're going to turn. So I'm at that mark. I'm going to turn and put the presser foot back down and keep going this way.
Okay, got just a smidge too far. There we
If you recall, this is a bottom edge is a straight, so I'm also going to turn here as soon as I get to where the seams meet. I'm going to go straight. And do a little back stitch here to secure it. Okay, there should be our mask sewn. Let's take a look and make sure I don't have any puckers or anything like that. Back side looks good. Okay, the next step is unpinning and turning our mask. Alright, so now let's unpin and turn the mask.
taking the pins out here. And this is going to take all of the pins out.
Okay, now to turn this, there's a super duper easy way to turn this. Actually, I am going to trim the corner just a little bit closer to the seam there so it has less bulk to turn at these corners. Just a smidge closer. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to, he's going to come adjust my camera. I'm going to turn this. You're going to have to loosen all the bolts, the places I've tightened it. Okay. Turn this over. And to pull your corners out, oftentimes you have to poke at things, but hey, we have these handy dandy little straps. Just give them a tug and your corners pop right out. We are almost done with the mask. And I have my seams made up all nice and tidily. I don't have any strange puckers. Okay, the next step is going to be press a nice sharp edge where we've turned it. Then we're going to tuck this, sew this in close and make our nose piece. So the next step we're going to do is back over at the pressing mat. Okay, so now we have our mask turned. We now need to press a nice crisp edge. I just barely plugged my iron in, so it may not be hot yet, but we're going to give it a go here. Nice crisp edge where it's turned.
Yes, it's a curved surface. We're only pressing the edge, so we can make it flat enough to press the edge. And it seems meet beautifully, as I was hoping they would. I'm going to go. Try not to burn myself again.
Okay, so we have our nice crisp edge. Now this open end, we're going to tuck in and press our 1/4 inch seam. Sure. So I'm just going to do some little brief 1/4 inch marks just so I know where I'm turning to. And yeah, they're going to show. But you know what? This is a mask. I'm only going to make little dots periodically at the 1/4 inch mark. Let me get that up there. Let's see if I got that. I think I got that one too far. Yep, that one I got too far. 1/4 inch mark. Here's my 1/4 inch mark. Quarter inch mark right there. And maybe one here in the middle for where I turn to. Let's see here. Just turn down. And yeah, I'm separating the layers here just to get my spot. I'm going to turn down to that little purple dot. And this basting line of the strap should not show once we get it turned down. Okay. Now again on this other side, turn down to my dot. There. And then try to get about that same amount turned down. Either side here through the middle. Pull it, have it turned down on your edges, pull it tight, and hopefully it will tuck that same amount in all the way. First this layer, and then on the other side, turn. turn. You don't have to be super exact. Just there we go. And make sure the strap stays tucked. I'm going to turn and press, and then I'm going to pin just to make sure that these straps don't pull out, which I've had happen sometimes at the straps. When I go to top stitch, the straps try to pull out and they don't get caught. So I am going to pin the straps down, and I actually am going to sew from the inside. So I'm going to pin on the inside. Tuck, tuck, top and bottom, and pin. And pin. And I'm going to pin once here and twice here in the middle. When you pin here, make sure you catch all the layers so that nothing comes unfolded. This one's a giant pin, but whatever. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to top stitch, not a 1/4 inch in, really close to this edge though, because we want to keep the top stitch in and tuck, have that 1/4 inch seam allowance tucked in. So it's going to be like 1/8 of an inch. So that will be back at the sewing machine. All right, now we've got this pin. We are going to sew a top stitch line like 1/8 of an inch, not catching the knit fabric down here, just to sew this closed, and it catches the straps, secures the straps again as well. So here we go.
New message is received from 56266.
All right, going to be fairly close there. Hold my pin, do my back stitch, and go forward again. Right, and that seam is sewn. All right, so now we have, this is top stitched. The mask is wearable in this way. It's not going to fit the best until we put the nose piece in, however, so let's go ahead and do that now. So for the moment, we're going to set the mask aside. We're going to get the pipe cleaner that was in our kit. We need to cut off 10 inches. My mat is 10 inches marked here, 10 inches across. Get my handy dandy little Leatherman here. You can cut pipe cleaner with scissors, but it is wire. So if you got something to cut wire with, cut wire. And you might say 10 inches, that's really long. That's because we're going to fold this in half. I'm going to twist just a little end just to hold the ends together, and then bend it down so the sharp points are not going to try to stick out the end of the placket that we're going to make for it. Okay, so let's go, well, I can probably do it here. I was going to go to the other cam, but we can probably do it here. I'm just going to eyeball where the halfway point is on this mask and lay that halfway, or on the pipe cleaner, lay that halfway point on the center seam, come down here and mark with a pin where the pipe cleaner comes to. I'm just going to mark that right there. And then I'm going to also mark it the other end. Come back over here and mark the other end of where it comes to with another pin. Okay, now lay the pipe cleaner aside. We need to make a casing in here to hold the pipe cleaner. I am going to pin, just so things aren't wobbling like this, I am going to pin several places here to keep all the things nice and tidy on the edge there. I'm going to pin both sides of my center seam. Keep my seam together. And then probably one spot in the middle, making sure my edge stays nice and sharp there. And here. Now I am going to do one thing, because this pin here, we're going to be sewing down this way, and this pin tends to get caught in the sewing machine plate. I'm just going to take my little friction pen, I'm going to mark where I'm going to start right here, and this mark will erase out. Then I'm going to move my pin perpendicular, because you can sew across it if it's perpendicular. So we are going to sew from this little mark down approximately ½ inch. Then we're going to turn and sew along this way until we get to this pin, and then we're going to stop. Make sure you do a back and forth at the end here. This two things, it'll lock your thread. It also will reinforce the end. And then we'll do the back and forth here. So let's go over to the sewing machine and sew this. Alright, so we are going to sew down ½ inch and across at ½ inch from the edge, clear over to that pin. Let's do that now. And my mark right there.
Yes, you are once again going around the curve here. Keep your fabric taut. Don't let it roll up on you.
Slow down coming up over these seam allowances, because sometimes the machine decides it doesn't like that every once in a while. Your last pin that marks the other end of your placket, and lock your thread. And then come out from under the machine. Okay, we are now ready to insert the pipe cleaner. So let's go over to the cam where you can see what I'm doing there, and we'll do that. Okay, so we've got our one end and across, top stitched. So here's the outside, here's the inside. We're going to take our pipe cleaner, not the twisted end, but just the folded over end. It's a little stiffer and doesn't collapse on us. We're just going to thread it in through where we have the knit fabric not sewn down. And we're just going to thread it into, be careful this seam allowance. This is why I told you to press the seam allowance away from this so that you can thread this in. It still sometimes likes to catch there, I've discovered. There we go. Thread it into the placket all the way. Not quite all the way in yet. It's getting closer. Okay, now it is all the way in, and the only thing left to do is to close this placket at the end. All right, last thing we're going to do is we're just going to sew the end of this placket closed and seal the pipe cleaner in there. Make sure you go back and forth to reinforce this and to lock it as well. And the mask is now complete. All right, so the masks are done. I'm not going to hold those masks up to my face because I'm going to actually give those to my veterinarian. To pre-shape your nose piece, and don't just slap it on there and then try to smash it on your face. It doesn't really work that well. I worked in healthcare. I know how to pre-shape your nose piece. Put your 2 thumbs inside at the center and shape it around your thumbs and then put it on. That's great. So it fits just over the tip of your nose and just under your chin. Tie it up here. I have to wear a ponytail if I'm to wear it for very long because it likes to slip. If you've got a better hairstyle or a different shape head, it might stay a little bit better. These are very comfortable. We can wear these. We've worn these for a couple of hours and not had any discomfort. So these are great little masks. Thanks for watching. I will make sure to put all of the various links of where you can order your kit, download if all you want is the pattern, I'll put the download link on there. If you want me to make them for you because they look a little daunting, I'm happy to do that as well. So I will put all those links in there, and thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, smash that notification button, and thanks for watching.